Today I want to show you how you can capture the essence of some Sichuan flavors, store it in the fridge, and with it, create dishes like Mapo Tofu or Sichuan Boiled Beef in minutes by making what I call the Sichuan Roux. Like any good Sichuan dishes, we start by toasting the Sichuan peppercorn. For peppercorns in general, the toasting releases the essential oils that are responsible for their unique flavors and aromas. In this case, we're releasing the citrusy and floral notes. Yes, Sichuan peppercorn is more than numbing, but of course, the heat would also intensify the numbing sensation they're known for. Just a minute or two. Stove off, that's the water, peppercorns in. And we're not rinsing the pan, keeping all the essential oils there as well. And the grinding motion would once again help release the flavors we talked about. Half powder, half flakes. Perfect. Now we start the roux making. First, by infusing the oil. As with most roux recipes, we're using a total of 50-50 oil to flour ratio. But with the oil, we're using half neutral high smoke point oil and half homemade chili oil. You can also use store-bought. We're only adding the neutral oil in the beginning to prevent the chili oil from burning. And to that, we add some aromatic ingredients. Whole garlic cloves, which would add a savory, slightly sweet aroma, ginger for some warmth, but mainly for the fresh aromas in this instance that would balance the richness of the roux in general. With the short cooking time, there's not much time for the ginger to impart meaningful spiciness. Star anise adds a sweet, licorice-like aroma, cinnamon stick for the woody, sweet, spicy notes, and bay leaf for the herbal and earthy notes. And these were aromatics you would normally add to Sichuan chili oil making. So we are reinforcing those flavors later on by adding the actual Sichuan chili oil. And what we're taking with us, like any oil infusion, are the fat-soluble flavor compounds. So certain things are water-soluble and you wouldn't take it with you. For example, the harshness of the garlic. After 4 to 5 minutes, before anything has a chance to burn, take them out, thank them for their service. We introduce and cook out the star of the show, the fermented Sichuan bean paste, which would give us the signature color, umami, salinity, and spiciness. And it's important to cook it out to activate the oil-soluble flavors and remove some of its harshness, similar to what you would do to tomato puree. Once our neutral oil has taken on this beautiful red color, we add our Sichuan chili oil. And we now begin the roux making by adding all-purpose flour. And as we stir vigorously, beautifully infused oil would start coating the flour, coating each starch granule of the flour, preventing them from clumping together when we do introduce the liquid. And this is what's going to bind the oil and liquid together. And when introduced to your cooking liquid, this is what's going to thicken your sauce. And the reason for roux, if I could paraphrase Angela, is not just for storage. Yes, this will make life easier if you want weekday Mapo Tofu. But more importantly, and the reason why this is how I prepare a lot of Sichuan dishes lately, is that this really mixes the flavors together, truly binding the fat-soluble flavors with the water-soluble flavors. How many times have you ordered subpar Chinese delivery only to find an inch of oil floating on top? With the roux, every mouthful would have everything from the oil and everything from the liquid, and no need for a cornstarch slurry at the end to finish the dish. Now, once this starts to smell like the crust of a really yummy piece of bread, we start to introduce the black bean paste. This is just some fermented black beans that I've soaked and crushed. And now, the Sichuan peppercorn. And we're adding them now, not in the beginning, because their flavors are more delicate and they could burn if added too early. And both the fermented black beans and the Sichuan peppercorns have a lot of water-soluble flavors to offer, and that's why we're keeping them in solid form instead of just infusing them with the oil in the beginning like the other ingredients. Once this is well incorporated, we start to introduce the liquid ingredients. First up, Shaoxing wine. which adds a ton of umami, some mild sweetness, and some very complex aromas. And like any roux, as we introduce the liquid, the starch content of the roux starts to swell, gelatinizing, thickening it in the process. And it's important to add cold liquid to this to buy yourself more time so they don't clump together. Next up, equal quantity of soy sauce. This, of course, will add a ton of umami. And to make this smoother and the eventual cooking easier, we start to introduce ice water bit by bit. And in terms of how much water to add, at this point, you're really just solving for a smooth texture. Perfect. Stove off. And we simply let this cool down to room temperature. And you can portion them in an ice cube tray, keep them in the freezer, and they're ready whenever you fancy a Mapo Tofu, Sichuan Boiled Beef, or even just a very flavors of noodle soup. Of course, Sichuan food has a lot more to offer than these flavors, and hopefully we'll get to explore them together in the future. This is my misleadingly named Sichuan Roux.